Chapter 8 Joe's father's funeral was very grand and very hasty. After 3 days of storage, he was hurriedly buried. The day after the funeral, the lawyer read Joe's father's will. Its contents shocked everyone. Joe's father left all the property under his name, including 30% of Joe Group's shares to the youngest son, Joe and Ang. The eldest son and the second son didn't get anything. The second son, Zhou Wenjing, was an illegitimate child, and he had never received Zhou's father's love. It wasn't strange for him to not inherit anything. However, even the eldest son got nothing, which was very bewildering. Recalling how Zhou's mother had also given her legacy to the youngest son, the world had no choice but to sigh. This Zhou couple was really biased to the extreme. How could Zhou Yunsheng, who had no family property, live in the future? Did they not consider this problem? Mr. Zhou, please sign. The lawyer placed a thick stack of documents in front of Zhou and Ang and asked him to sign. The rest of the people could only stare helplessly. This is impossible. Zhou Hao can't have left nothing for Yunsheng. He told us he'd give Zhou clan to Yunsheng. Old Lady Yang shouted, not daring to believe. Old Gentleman Yang also stared at the completely satisfied Yang's grandson doubtfully. As in-laws, they were invited to attend the will reading. Yunsheng smiled and patted the back of his grandmother's aged hand. Although their relationship was estranged, the two elderly people hadn't lost their love for him. How is it impossible? He went abroad for 6 or 7 years and never called home. I was the only one who accompanied father, fulfilling my filial duty. I also helped take care of the company. Isn't it proper for father to leave the inheritance to me? Zhou and Ang's attitude towards the two elderly people was no longer as respectful as before. But Xi's legacy was already given to you. Your older brother doesn't have anything. How can he live in the future? Old Lady Yang still felt it was unfair. Whether he lives or dies, is it any of my concern? It's getting late. Please leave. All right, from tomorrow, I am the newly appointed chairman of Zhou clan, and I have decided to disinvest from Yang clan. I ask that you make the proper preparations. Zhou Wenang smiled insincerely as he drove them out. Bastard, what are you saying? Do you know the consequences of disinvesting from Yang clan? Do you want to force Yang clan into bankruptcy? Old Gentleman Yang asked in a sinking voice, his wrinkled face exposing difficult to conceal rage. He didn't expect the youngest grandson would turn on them so ruthlessly. Was the previous sensible feel petty fake? What debt did the Yang family owe him to actually let him plot the death of the Yang family? Zhou and Jing, who had been expressionless all along, finally exposed a smile. He knew that the old man's will didn't have anything for him. Today he came purely for the sake of watching the drama. Yang family never looked at him, and now Zhou and Ang, who they poured 20 years of love in, was attacking them. A real dog bites dog. Each gets a mouthful of fur situation. Zhou Yunsheng was very calm from beginning to end. He patted his grandfather's shoulder, smiling gently. He wants to disinvest, so let him withdraw. Grandfather, grandmother, we're leaving. But how could old gentleman Yang be willing to go? If Zhou clan disinvests, Yang clan's seabed tunnel project would have a huge shortage of funds, so the project couldn't be completed as scheduled. Even worse, it could fail. Then, not only would Yang clan's early investment of 10,000s of millions be lost, but they'd have to compensate the huge amounts of liquidated damages and bank loans. Even selling all of Yang clan's industries may not be able to fill in this hole. Zhou and Ang, this would simply send Yang family to death. Even if you back him, he won't change his mind. He wants Yang family to go bankrupt and die. Grandfather, grandmother, come with me. I'll find a way. Zhou Yunsheng was afraid that if this conversation continued, it will stimulate the two elderly people, so he forcefully took them away. You'll find a way. What can you do? Zhou Wenang and Zhou Wenjing mocked inwardly, agreeing by coincidence. Zhou's father had barely died, and Zhou clan and Yang clan's cooperation came crashing down. Zhou clan's newly appointed chairman, Zhou Wenang, announced that he would disinvest from Yang clan's seabed tunnel project for unknown reasons. Yang clan was currently facing the biggest crisis. If not properly handled, this would sink into a desperate straits of bankruptcy and liquidation. But at this time, no one extended a helping hand. They were waiting for Yang Clan to fail, so they could snatch up the seabed tunnel project that would create tens of billions in profits in the future at the lowest price. The business world was like this. For benefits, not mentioning friends, even close relatives could be sold. But what was even more surprising was that old gentleman Yang was unexpectedly very stable. When he returned home, he ate and slept like nothing was wrong, not begging everywhere for help like everyone guessed he would. Yang family's several children were also carefree. Yang Zhenhai, the current head of the Yang family's wife, even cleared out tens of millions worth of jewelry in the shopping mall. She didn't look like she lacked for money. Aya, my nephew is the chairman of Noah Universal. What do I have to worry about? You know Noah Universal, right? Ranked first in the world's top 500 companies? Lady Yang stared at the huge diamond ring on her index finger. Her laughter was particularly cheerful. The salesman merely nodded, but he criticized in his heart. Of your two nephews, one inherited Zhou clan and the other turned into a penniless pauper. Why did you get the world's richest nephew? Dreaming? Yang family's reaction, although strange, Zhou Wenang had no choice but to ignore it. He was busy fighting off Zhou Wenjing's sniping. Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't have guessed that the illegitimate child that had previously been played around with by him was actually sitting on a multi-million-dollar net worth and would attempt to compete with him for the Zhou clan. Zhou Wenjing first released news that Zhou Wenang wasn't Yang Xi's son, and also implied that Zhou Hao murdered Yang Xi, seeking her heritage. Furthermore, he published a DNA comparison of Yang Xi and Zhou Wenang on the internet, causing the police to quickly start an investigation. After two consecutive big scandals, the world was in an uproar. After Zhou's father died, Zhou Group's stock prices declined daily. And Zhou Wenjing was taking advantage of this opportunity to wantonly buy up the shares until he became a large shareholder of Zhou Group. Zhou Yunsheng didn't make a single move. He wanted the two people to fight till death. He never planned to sue Zhou Wenang and fight for the family property from the beginning. He decided to leave him with nothing. As for Zhou Wenjing, the former great winner, he wanted to give him a vivid life lesson, teaching him what the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole lurking behind, meant, and what it meant to draw water with a wicker basket. The desperate heartache and misery Zhou Yunsheng experienced once wouldn't exist in this lifetime. After several months, the two Yizhou brothers' intense competition reached a climax. The two were currently holding a 30% stake in Zhou clan, and all the shareholders that could be roped in and had already picked a team. To decide the victor, they needed to go after the final 15% of shares, which were unexpectedly in the hand of the two clans' hands. As early as 7 years ago, he was already a shareholder in Zhou clan, but no one noticed. Zhou and Ang had no plans to ponder over the meaning behind this head of the Dole clan's moves. He only knew if he could persuade him to sell his shares to him or support him in the shareholders' meeting, he would be the final winner. Unfortunately, Zhou Wenjing also had the same idea as him. He'd just gotten out of the elevator when the two met in the corridor. Please come in. Do you want coffee or green tea? Ilo Suzanne, speaking fluent Mandarin, brought the two people into the chairman's office. Coffee, green tea. The two answers completely opposed. The leather chair turned around, and a tall and vigorous man appeared, smoking a cigar. His eyes narrowed, his hair was combed back, revealing a handsome, evildoer's face. His thin lips spit out a mouthful of smoke, but it couldn't cover up the sharp light in his dark pupils. Zhou and Jing habitually sat up straighter, and Zhou and Ang was so scared that he spilled his hot coffee. But what made him even more panicked wasn't Du Shulang's identity, but how Zhou and Jing respectfully greeted him. He actually called him uncle. I see you guys have already joined I see you guys have already joined hands to deal with me. Knowing that staying any longer would just lead to his own disgrace, Zhou and Ang covered the scalded back of his hand and left, utterly discomfited. He joined hands was referring to his joint hands was referring to Zhou Wenjing, Zhou Yunsheng, Du Shulang together after all. He knew that Du Shulang was Zhou Yunsheng's boyfriend. The other side had such a big tree like Du Shulang to lean against. No wonder the two old fools in Yang family could quickly collect 2 billion in investment to fill in the holes. But Zhou Wenjing didn't know the inside story. He thought he was just talking about his uncle and himself joining hands. When he went away, he asked warmly, Uncle, do you still want the 15% of the shares? If you don't want it, please sell it to me. Count it as cutting me a deal. Du Shulang didn't reply, instead asking in a deep voice, Wenjing, have you never thought that Zhou clan could belong to Yunsheng? Zhou Wenjing barely suppressed the jealous hate in his heart, pretending to laugh lightly. Uncle, you once taught me that the business world is a battlefield. Whatever you want, you have to rely on yourself to seize it. This is the so-called natural selection, respect for the strong. If he wants Zhou clan, he can fight with me, each relying on our own skill. Du Sulang inexplicably looking out for Zhou Yunsheng made him feel a sense of crisis. Du Sulang was silent a moment, then he nodded. You're right, natural selection, respect for the strong. Whoever has the ability, Zhou clan will belong to them. That means, Uncle, you'll stay on the sidelines and won't intervene? Zhou Wenjing probed, still not relieved. I won't intervene. Then the shares. Zhou Wenjing was somewhat pushy. He was afraid his uncle would give the shares to Zhou Yunsheng. Just because he didn't deal with Zhou Yunsheng didn't mean that he wanted to let him have an easy life. He had long sworn he'd leave the other men with nothing. I sell the 15% to you, 35 yuan per share. Nu Shulang gave the most reasonable price. Zhou Wenjing was very satisfied. He immediately took out a check and filled in the figures. Inu Suzanne sent him to the elevator door, looking at his self-satisfied face as he disappeared through the door. He quietly sighed ruefully. Silly boy, unknowingly fooled by the boss. You thought the boss not helping anyone was fair, but in fact he was just covering up his partiality. Nothing more. According to Zhou Yunsheng's acting style, if he doesn't move, then it's fine. Once he moved, it was bound to be deadly. He didn't compete for Zhou clan's shares, not because he had no ability, but because he already plans to destroy Zhou clan. This 15% share certificate would eventually become waste paper. The boss obviously knew the truth, but he didn't mention it in order to secure his lover's plan, and he also sold a stack of waste paper to his nephew for a sky-high price. Really, this is exemplary ignoring your friends after getting a new girlfriend syndrome. Ah, that's not right. It should be ignoring your friend after getting a new boyfriend. Wait, what also seems wrong, it should be hoes before bros. Finally finding a suitable idiom to describe the current situation, Inu Suzanne gave a thumbs up to his own Chinese language mastery.